back to the show, WW2 Books, Where to Start. I'm your host, Jumpin' Jim Gavin, getting psyched up for a little operation we've codenamed Market Garden. But before I hit the silk, I'd like to count down the top best 9 WW2 books I read this year, 2025. I know, 9 is bigger than 7, which I recently claimed was really the target number in a list to present when I did my best memoirs of the Pacific War. However, after looking at my potential winners for this year, I just couldn't narrow it down any further than 9, and so that's what we're going to run with. The hell with it. As always, due to my stringent editorial standards here at this channel, no repeats were considered or included for this countdown, though I did in fact have several repeats this year. Overall for 25, I've read 70 books, of which 52 were directly or indirectly connected to the war, and you'll see why that's an important distinction very shortly. And with that delicious teaser, let's hit the books. All right, number 9, Gone with the Wind. Margaret Mitchell, 1936, 959 pages. Okay, I can hear you out there saying fiddle-dee-dee. First off, any discussion or mention of this novel is an instant political hot topic in today's highly partisan / political social media landscape. I fully understand that. I'm not trying to be edgy here and putting this on the list. It's got a legit connection to the war. Memoir after memoir or general history of battle or battle history will have a mention of the movie. Like me and the boys went over to the movie tent and we saw Gone with the Wind for the 5th time that night. Or it's mentioned as the most popular film screened during the history of the Third Reich. And I've even recently seen, and I can't recall what book it was in, but allegedly Goering was given a copy of the novel in German translation in his cell at Nuremberg. It was the rare American film that Joey G approved of for German audiences, and it's plain as day why. The prejudicial racial overtones fit in perfectly with a race-obsessed Reich. But I wonder if the real sympathetic appeal as the war went on was seeing Atlanta burning to the ground while Rhett and Scarlett escaped. That would resonate pretty heavily with German audiences, I think. Good enough. But why, you ask, do I put it on this list of best books I read this year? When reading and studying literature, one is supposed to put author intentions to the side and try to rate it as a work of art, as if on an island devoid of any outside information, to avoid conscious bias against the author from the outset. I can't claim total immunity in this regard by any measure, but I looked up nothing about Mitchell during or after reading the novel. I wanted it to stand on its own or fall on its own. As an American and a Yankee at that, I'm already a subjective reader before I open a cover. The discussion of this novel is fraught with current political tidal waves, if you're all sensitive to historical events. But again, why did I include it? Because it's pretty damn good, and it connects, like Kevin Bacon, 7 Stages Up, pretty directly to the war. And I give it 5 stars. Scarlett to me is a psychopath, eyes on the prize, nothing's going to stop me now from attaining my dream kind of gal. Or maybe a sociopath is more accurate. She has little to no regard for anyone around her dying, or for her own children, or dying men in the hospital. They're just an annoyance, and a smelly one at that. For her, life is social status, wealth, and Ashley, and later on, Rhett. Not going to wag my finger or crease my brow or lecture at length. This novel's a must-read for American lit and an illuminating one for the study of the war, no matter how you feel about its wider implications. My number 9, Gone with the Wind. Alrighty, moving on. Number 8, Ship of Fate by Roger Morehouse from 2018, 181 pages. I read 5 or 6 books for my video on Operation Hannibal, and Morehouse's was easily the best of the lot, no question. It's right at you, no nonsense, no fluff, well researched and fleshed out despite the brief page count. Also, no unnecessary drama or nail-biting to induce emotional reaction in his audience. I mean, really, if the story of nearly 10,000 people drowning at sea isn't enough to chill your bones on its own merits, there's nothing a writer can do to make you feel it. And that's the great strength here. He just tells it like it was, how it unfolded, with the tragic tales of those who survived as the additional gut punch. I was highly impressed. That's Ship of Fate by Roger Morehouse. All right, number 7, Tailspin by John Armbruster, 2022, 448 pages, main body. This is unique in my reviews of best/worst because it's going to make both lists. I'll save the yucky for the worst of list, obviously, and if you choose to see that video, you'll have to judge whether I'm correct in my assessment of this biography. Gene Moran was a tail gunner in a B-17 whose plane was cut in half by enemy fighter fire over Germany close to Thanksgiving 43. Unable to bail out, he rode the tail section down to the ground, trapped by centrifugal force. That tail section had to have some kind of glider-like properties to it because it was not a 90-degree straight-down death plunge. Gene survived a hard landing in the forest and wasn't killed on the spot as so many American airmen were later in the war. Moved to a few different stalags, he ends up in one on the Eastern Front and there endured the cold and the lice, the semi-starvation that's often skimmed over in memoirs from the ETO. When the Soviets get close in late 44, he's put aboard a ship, what amounts to a hell ship for the ETO, something I wasn't really aware of existed for American POWs until I read this book. And that's the most harrowing part of the tale, and I can't even tell you where he was when he was liberated. The hell ship wipes out everything else. His post-war life is a struggle against breakdown for the PTSD he suffered, finally winning out for the most part against the memories of the war. The downside, as I said, is another matter entirely, but I have to give this recognition as being one of the best I read this year in that respect only. The actual tale of Gene Moran. That's Tailspin by John Armbruster. Okay, moving on. Number 6, Aftermath by Harold Yaner from 2019, 327 pages. If you want to know what happened to Germany once the war was over, well, this is one vision of that post-war reality. I would naturally reference Savage Continent at this point as a comparison and a companion and put it on this list as well, but it is a repeat and thus not eligible. Aftermath is a heavily sociological inspired study of German society in the immediate to 10 years after the war. It's a fair warning. If you don't like your sociology mixed with your history, or you don't like history mixed with your sociology, or you don't like sociology at all in your history, skip it. It does have some wonky passages late in the text that left me with raised eyebrows. The shape of furniture relating to the emotional/political state of the population just leaves me shuddering in perplexity. But the vast majority of this book is a solid revelation of how the German citizen got on with getting on after the most destructive experience any person could imagine happening to them. Call it sympathy for the devil or rooting for the underdog, but I did feel an affinity for the survivors of the Allied carpet bombing and direct experience of war in the streets. Their lives, their cities, their existence got ripped up like a piece of paper, and some of it was burned, some of it was buried, some of it was shredded. And then they were left to put their life and their things back together. Yaner helps you sympathize with the average man, the average child in the streets, separates the idea of enemy from person, while certainly not neglecting the ugly aspects of this post-war coping and survival. 5 stars automatic. That is Aftermath by Harold Yaner. Okay, then number 5, Canaris by Heinz Hona from 1976, 599 pages, main body. I'm going to switch gears a little bit with a slow burn biography. Had to have a bio in here in my personal year of the biography, and Wilhelm Canaris is an intriguing fellow. Escaping from a prison camp in South America after the sinking of his light cruiser Dresden in World War I, upon return to Germany, he is assigned to some clandestine work in southern Europe, arranging for supplies to the U-boat bases in the Med. Later in the war, he gains commander of the U-boat himself. Post-war, he hooks up with the Freikorps. It's the only decent thing a soldier can do in the post-war Reich, or post-war Germany. Gets involved in a bit of would-be king-making in the immediate post-war muddle in Berlin, eventually settles into the intelligence community such as it was post-war, and through dint of steady and conniving interwar espionage enterprises, eventually rises to the top of the heap of the Abwehr, Weimar's military intelligence service, where he remains when Hitler comes to power. The upper echelons of the Nazi Party retained faith in Canaris far longer than was prudent, for the conniver never stopped conniving, even if he didn't know exactly what he was conniving at, or what he exactly wanted Germany to be without Hitler. Surrounding himself in his command structure of the Abwehr with other connivers of a more solid intent, he eventually brings about his own downfall late in the war, albeit through some absurdly stupid means. Himmler seems to have been complicit in keeping him in power far longer than was advisable as he played his own shadowy games. Eventually shot in the dying days of the Reich at Flossenburg, he remains a somewhat enigmatic spy master. Hona does the story justice, painstakingly documented. Had he survived, however, it is very possible he would have been in the dock at Nuremberg for war crimes he authorized in Poland early in the war, unless, of course, the Brits and the Yanks thought him too valuable to be shooting his mouth off in the witness box. 4 stars, well worth it. That's Canaris by Heinz Hona. Number 4, Fire in the Sky by Eric Bergerud from 2,676 main body pages. It's a whopper. Concerned with the South Pacific aerial battleground only, this is a true beast to wade through. It is a topical survey rather than a straightforward timeline history, so you'll have plenty of back and forth through various campaigns as he covers topics like training, losses, aircraft strengths and weaknesses, the terrain, the climate, the leadership, the various kinds of engagements and patrols conducted throughout the South Pacific up until the New Guinea campaign finally concluded in the summer of '44. No lover of MacArthur, he's far more concerned with the next layer of command down and with the flyers and what is an exhaustive investigation of the campaign and the methods used to wage it. An impressive, nearly endless cavalcade of anecdotes will fill your need for more than just theory and leave you with raised eyebrows many a time. If you like aerial dogfights and want to know how the war was fought in the South Pacific in the air, it's definitely for you. 5 stars, that's Fire in the Sky by Eric Bergerud. All right, number 3, kind of switching gears again. We're going to go a little bit lighthearted with this one. 20 Billion Tons Under the Sea by Daniel Gallery from 1948, 267 pages. Need a good sea yarn? Well, look no further. The capture of U-505 is a high point in the war for the United States Navy. Though at the time it happened, it looked like a low point, with D-Day in Normandy just 2 or 3 days hence, and the infinite number of worries over security for the invasion augured that nabbing a U-boat on the high seas at that particular moment was a very, very, very bad idea. Hushed up successfully post-war, this piratical escapade is legendary, and we have Gallery to thank personally for the fact that the 505 is now a permanent part of the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago. How he managed to get there is another tale well told by Gallery, a man fond of boasting of his Irish heritage and telling his story with a wink and a nod. His hunter-killer group had just sunk the U-515 shortly beforehand, and thinking it over, Gallery thought it could have been captured instead, and sets his sights on making it happen the next time. Along comes the hapless bad luck of the U-boat force U-505, sailing under the oldest captain in the U-boat force at the tender age of 40, a boat infamous for its harbor repair time, as well as its previous captain, who had infamously unalived himself in the middle of a depth charge attack. Gallery's hunters depth charge it and force it to the surface, capturing nearly all the crew as well as the boat itself, netting a nice haul of enigma material. This book is a hoot and a half, not to be missed if you like the word sea. That's 20 Million Tons Under the Sea by Daniel Gallery. Number 2, War's End by Charles Sweeney from 1997, 315 pages. I've been forced to reassess my impression of commanders and general officers' writing and storytelling prowess this year, after plotting through previous poor efforts like Company Commander from Charles MacDonald and Combat Command from Frederick Sherman, as well as Patton's poor effort in War as I Knew It. I've been leery ever since about officers penning their wartime experiences. But this year and last, I've come across several good efforts, such as the last book I just presented, as well as Charles Lockwood's Sink 'Em All and Our Jungle Road to Tokyo by Robert Eichelberger, as well as this memoir of Sweeney's time in the 509th Composite Squadron. Sweeney, of course, was a pilot on the second atomic bomb mission to Nagasaki flying boxcar. Not his personal plane, which was the Great Artiste, and that was still loaded with photographic equipment from the Hiroshima mission, and thus Sweeney and his crew were the only men to fly both of them. It's a well-told story of how he came to be in the 509th and Paul Tibbs' leadership style, how the technique for the bomb runs was evolved, and the worries and stress of preparing to do the job. The bomb mission itself was a series of problems and complications not encountered during the Hiroshima bombing, and Sweeney's fixes and improvs for this flight are incredible reading. He is every bit as practical and unemotional over the effects of what he and his crew did that day as Tibbets was concerning Hiroshima, and devotes some number of pages patiently explaining why it was going to happen, why it was necessary, and why backwards-looking finger-pointing misses the point entirely. His prose is practical and to the point, and yet he's a very good storyteller, somehow in this process, never seeming forced or self-conscious. It's an unparalleled look inside the atomic bomb missions that ended the war, and thus my number 2, War's End by Charles Sweeney. And number 1, Skies of Thunder by Caroline Alexander from 2024, 380 pages main body. Flying the hump in twin-engine cargo aircraft to get supplies and fuel to Chiang Kai-shek's nationalist China is exactly no one's idea of a good time. And the ground beneath this aerial highway is strewn with the carcasses of some 500 aircraft that didn't make it due to severe weather, damage to the aircraft from fire or other causes, crashes into mountains, severe icing, bad navigation, sometimes enemy fighters, and others lost to causes unknown, aircraft still not found. Giving a solid background with the colonial history of Burma and the building of the Burma Road in the 30s before the Japanese invaded in 41, this is a tale of woe and mass death few in the United States ever suspect happened, let alone why. Once we are into the war, we are introduced to America's version of Monty, one Vinegar Joe Stilwell, as well as the eccentric Claire Chenault, Frank Merrill, and the ultimate quack in the theater, Ord Wingate. You may be thrown off balance by the shift from flying the hump and the politics of keeping Chiang in the war when she goes over to a recounting of the land campaign in the late war. I certainly was, but she pulls it off quite well. The only downside to this book is there's no photo section at all, which is an inexplicable oversight for a book on the little-known aspect of the war such as the CBI/the hump. I feel the publisher really dropped the ball on this, and it lets Alexander down too. After an excellent effort in print, it would be of great value to be able to put faces to the names we're reading about. 5 stars for the author, 2 stars for the publisher. Look at you, Viking Press, you screwed this up. Skies of Thunder by Caroline Alexander, and that's my number 1 best book of the year. And there you have it, folks, the best 9 of the year for me, ranging from Still Warm Off the Presses with Skies of Thunder in 24 to The Wayback Machine 1936 Gone with the Wind. You may fire at will in the comments with your take on the best of this year's reading. From heavy-hitting sociological history to personal memoirs, a bio and a narrative history of flying the hump, I've ranged far and wide to bring you the tales of this war. I'm Jim Gavin, and listen, don't tell Patton this, but I've got a hot date with Marlene Dietrich tonight in Paris. She's promised me a personal rendition of Lily Marlene. Ooh la la. And then it's going to be off to Holland and some dirty job involving some bridges and ending the war before Christmas. As long as Monty stays out of the way, I'm sure we can pull it off. Until next time, happy reading.